how to use SolidWorks. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to use relations in SolidWorks. So just to show you, here's a list of the relations. I'll send you this graphic so you can see all of the relations. Some of these we're not going to deal with, like all the parallel ZX and ZY and a long Z and the fix and fix slot. So it's mainly these top 8 or so that we're going to deal with. I will also be sending you a PDF which looks like this, which is from the SolidWorks help website, which is very useful, which just explains all of the icons and how they work. So those two will be coming your way. So I'm in a part drawing, and I've actually opened a sketch, so we'll stay in the sketch, and then I'm just going to draw a sketch now from scratch, but I'm going to draw it in space. Instead of doing what I normally do is locate it against the origin. And I'm doing this just so that I can show you how the relations work and what they are. So a lot of your drawing will be, you'll automatically get relations. You'll see that this is snapping to, this line is snapping to a horizontal position, or I can snap it to a vertical position, and it is coincident at the moment. And that's because you've got guidelines in SolidWorks. So I'm going to make that one snap. And then I'm going to deliberately avoid the guidelines. Oh, I see that hasn't given me a relation. Not a problem. So I'm going to create a shape which I'm going to need to locate around a center line manually. Here's a trick which you probably know about, but might not. If you hover at the end of a line, if you hover your cursor, that line will change from a straight line to a curve. And if I click again, it'll go back to a straight line, and it will keep going to a straight line unless I hover again, in which case it'll alter and become a curve. So a straight line. And if I want to alter again to a curve, I just hover, should be able to hover again. You have to click again. All right, so I'm going to leave the line unfinished like this. And you can see that some of my icons for the relations are showing. It's showing me where the relations have been established. Like this one here doesn't have a relation, so it means that if I pull it around, you can see that the curve doesn't stay tangent to the straight line. The reason I can see those is because I've switched them on under this hide or show all types. If I click on the arrow on the right hand side here, about just beyond the middle is a view sketch relations button, which I can switch off. I'm going to switch it on for now, just so that we can see which relations we're establishing. So I want to close this shape. I'm going to use my power trim button. At the moment, I cannot trim that line to this, that horizontal to this sort of angled line. But I can use, if I'm in the power trim, I can use this edge and just drag it out. And then I can hold the shift button down and drag across and then trim this final line. Right, so we've only got 4 relations here. It's very easy to set up other ones, as you know already. I exited the trim environment there. So if I click on a line, you should get the context menu box arriving just to the right, and there it'll give you the possible relations. So here we have horizontal, vertical, those are fairly obvious, and then make fixed, which sometimes is useful. So we're going to make that horizontal, and then I'm going to insert from the origin point upwards a vertical line, and this little icon here is the the coincident. Coincident just means that it is in line with. So let me just draw another line just to show you the difference between one that's cool, that is coincident already, but maybe not. The line doesn't need to be so this is an edited bit. I was trying to show you how you could make a line coincident with a point. What I'd done earlier is I'd created a line, and then I tried to make a point coincident with a point which you can't do. You can make it merge, which is not a problem. There it is there. That line is actually merged. Right, but that's not what I want to show you. You can make a line coincident with a point, and they won't meet. So I'm going to make it coincident. You'll see it shifted. That line is shifted here to the bottom, and it is now coincident with that point. So a line doesn't need to be doesn't need to touch a point to be coincident with it. So I want to now make the shape symmetrical around this line. I obviously could use the mirror entities button, but for the sake of this exercise, I want to show you how this works. If I want to connect this line to this line in some way, establish a relationship, I can click the lines, I can click at the point, and if there is a relationship possible between them, it'll appear in this little context button. So these are all possible. I can make both of those horizontal, would be ridiculous. I could make both of them vertical, would be equally ridiculous. I could make them collinear, which would not be ridiculous, because then they just become one straight line. Right, I'm going to reverse that. I can make them perpendicular, which is going to screw up my sketch quite a bit. I don't really want that. And I'm just showing you how it works. And then I can make them equal length. And there you'll see the equal sign. So this line, if I now put in a dimension, not sure why it's doing that. There we go. And I want to control it. Let's say I want to make that 70. You'll see that this other line, if I were to dimension it, would also be 70. Right, so you'll see that I get a warning sign saying this dimension is driven. Do I want to keep it driven? It just means that the dimension can't be used for anything. It's just a reflection of what that line is. So if I go to this other line and I make it 60, you'll watch the dimension at the bottom will also change to 60 because the two are equal, and I'm driving the one with the other. I'm driving this line using that dimension. I'm driving them both. Okay, so I don't want these equal, so I'm going to take these away. And here, it just won't let me do that. All right, so if I want to find out what dimensions are associated with the line, I just click on the line, and you'll see the dimensions reflected on the left-hand side. I should be able to select that dimension, that relation in this dialog box and delete it and say OK, and you'll see it's gone. All right, so that equal relation is now gone. See, finally, I can get rid of that dimension. I mean, that fixed dimension, driven dimension. I can select 2 points and then make them into a horizontal. So like this, I can go to the left-hand side, or I can right-click and then say make horizontal, and there they're horizontal. This one here, tangent. Tangent's a very important concept. We'll deal with in a bit more detail later. Most of your relations to do with arcs and straight lines should be tangent. Right, so if for instance, if I've got a point here that is horizontal with another one, if I drag it, you'll see that the other point follows it. But left to right, I can drag it and the other point will not. But if I were to select the 2 points and the center line, and I were to make them symmetric, then when I drag this line, the other line on the left-hand side follows it. Right, so this is almost fully defined other than dimensions, except that I can now move this thing up and down. So I want to establish a relation between that line and the center point. And that relation is the make midpoint relation. So you see, as soon as I do that, this line goes black. If I now put a dimension in, then that line is properly defined because everything about it is black. I want the full sketch to be fully defined. So before I can do that, I want some other relations. I want these two to be equal, And I can see that all my tangencies are in place. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. I need all of those. I could, if I wanted to, get these 3 lines to be symmetrical, or the 2 lines to be symmetrical around the center line. So to do that, if there's nothing else in between and there are just 3 lines, you can drag select, and that's the one time in which you'll get the relation appearing. So symmetric. So those are symmetric. So if I now put in a dimension, an angle dimension here of say 15 degrees, then when I move this dimension around, you'll see the dimension on the other side moves with it. So back to 15 if I can get it. Right, so now I just need to dimension a few more things. I can either dimension this as an angle, right, or I could have put in a dimension across these two. Like if I put in a dimension across here, I'm going to get an overdefined message, which some of you are aware of already. Oh, no, I'm not. Okay. All right, sorry, there's a mistake in there. Right, so let's put one in from center point to give us a height. There to there, 140. And then I need to give this a radius. Let's give it on this right-hand side, 40. Okay, so this sketch is now fully defined. I'll move these out of the way so I can get a clearer picture of what's going on here, and it's easy to manipulate. And I want to show you 2 other relations, 3 other in fact. So I'm going to draw a curve. Where is it? A 3-point arc. I'm going to draw it sort of in this region, but I'm going to try and make sure that it doesn't connect with that center point or with any of the other possible relations. So from there to there to there. Okay, and there are 2 radial relations that you need to know about. The one is co-radial and the other is, let's just see where this little symbol is. Have I got it? No, I've just made the picture disappear. Anyways, you'll see now, if I click on this line and that arc there, here are the co-radial relations. There's make co-radial and make concentric, right? So actually, they're both radial, but one's called concentric. So we're not going to do concentric just yet. We're going to go make co-radial. What that means is that these 2 share a radius, so they are both radius 40, and they share a center point. So if I were to measure this radius, you'll see it says 40. And in fact, if I drag one of these points around, you'll see it'll meet the other radius. So like that. So I can actually connect them up. I don't want that for now. I want to create something else. So I'm going to go back to my shortcut bar and this time select a circle. I'm going to make sure that I deliberately avoid this center line just to show you how the concentric relation works. So with that circle selected and that arc selected, if I right click, here is make concentric. Concentric means that they share a center point, but they do not share a radius or diameter. This means that I can now move this circle in or out independently of that line there. Okay, so I'm going to draw one more line across these 2 points, and then I'm going to trim these so that I can get this kind of half moon being both co-radial with that radius and concentric with one another. I'm going to give the center point, the center line, a dimension, which I'm going to make it into, say, 18 or 19 or something like that. And then one other relation, I want that line and this other line by extension to be parallel. So there's the parallel. So you'll see it move them parallel. And there's one other relation we haven't looked at, that is coplanar, I think, is it, or collinear. That's this symbol here. So if I click on this line, you'll see here it says collinear and coincident. Collinear means two lines are in the same plane, and if you were to join them up, they would join up as one line. Okay, so just to illustrate that, let's just draw one line here and another one a little bit lower. Oh, so let me just do that. And you can see that they are both horizontal, but if I select them both and I say make collinear, they're joined up, and I can now join them up if I want to. Okay, so I'm going to delete that. And one other one we haven't examined is, or some things about, is the sorry, before I move to this one, is the perpendicular. So I'm going to draw a line in space here, and I want to show you that perpendicularity depends on which line you choose first, and it depends on some sort of hierarchy. So if I select that line and that line, this, and I'm going to now make them perpendicular, that line will be perpendicular to this horizontal one, both because I selected it first and because it's got a relation established already. So let's do that. Let's go here. I've done the wrong thing. Shift click, perpendicular. Here is perpendicular, but it is not coincident. So if I drag that line down, it becomes perpendicular. And you can see I can now move it left to right, but I cannot move it up and down. I can also drag this point here to become coincident with that. And then I can fix it by putting a dimension in. So I'm going to take that out. All right, so that explains hopefully perpendicularity and collinearity. And you see that since these two are parallel, I can put a dimension in. However, if they weren't parallel, I could still put a dimension in. I would just need to remove the relation. So if I want to remove the relations from a set of lines, just select the three lines. So hold the shift button down, click, click. So those three lines, if there are existing relations, they should appear in the left-hand side. If they don't, go to this button at the top called Display Delete Relations. You'll get all of the relations. And so I'm going to leave the collinear one. I'm just going to select the parallel one, delete it. So you'll see it's left the others. And which means now I can take, say, a point and I can drag this around. So I can still dimension a line relative to another line, but obviously now it's an angled dimension, not a parallel dimension. So I'm just going to backtrack on that so that they are parallel, put that dimension in just to round this off and say that that is now fully defined sketch. Take that out. And thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.